Greetings everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm your host Captain Rye, and today's YouTube video is another subscriber replay. This one comes from a Train Amic. I'm just going to call him Train here, shorten down that name. Train has sent me his Cleveland replay, and he sent it to me because he said at this point in time it was the best game he's ever had in the Cleveland. And he's going to go on here and have a pretty reasonable game, even by my standards, which is fantastic. There are a few points throughout the battle where I think he could have done a little bit of target prioritization and shifted focus, and maybe performed a little bit better in the battle, but overall, he did pretty damn well. So as the battle gets started here, it's the Straits map, or I think it's the Straits map. I have no idea what map this is. I don't play it enough. Standard battle mode. So the enemy has only one base to capture. And he begins opening up at the first thing that's been spotted. Now, he's got armor piercing loaded, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend having that loaded at these kinds of ranges. Your shots are gonna not really want to penetrate stuff. And in the Cleveland especially, your high explosive is pretty damn good for starting fires. And fires annoy the ever-loving shit out of people, including cruisers, destroyers, and battleships. We know that the enemy team has a number of destroyers. If you look up there, you can see the team's list. They have the destroyer advantage, and normally in a domination battle mode, the team with the destroyer advantage, assuming the destroyers play well, has the advantage overall in the map. But because this is standard battle mode, depending on where the destroyers spawn, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have the advantage. Spots an enemy destroyer and immediately lets him have it with all 12 of his guns there. And he's going to continue to try and pour fire onto him. He manages to set that destroyer on fire, and the destroyer has got torpedoes out there. At the start of this battle, Train offered his friendly Warspite some anti-aircraft protection, and he offered that because if you'll look at the team's list again, you'll notice that there are 2 carriers on the enemy team, and that means there are a lot of planes, and the Cleveland really does excel at taking out aircraft. Can he secure the kill on this? Yes, he does manage to do it, and he secures his first blood in the process.
Torpedoes to starboard.
Now there is another enemy destroyer has popped up whose engine has been knocked out, so he's pretty much a sitting duck, and he's going to try and smoke up. He does manage to hit him for a little bit of damage there. Pumping rounds back into the same location. Might get lucky, might hit him again. There's another destroyer who's popped up. This time it's the Fubuki. Can he deal with that guy? Yes, he can. He sets him on fire twice, knocks out his engines. And this is where he kind of made a mistake for a second. He pulled his camera away, but he didn't pull but he also pulled his guns away. If you're trying to pan around really quickly, but you have a target that you want to stay locked on, you can just right-click on your mouse button, and that will let you pan the camera around without moving your guns. So he loses the opportunity there to secure the kill on the Fubuki, because his guns were out of position for that little bit. Enemy destroyer up there, very low health. Those shots, however, are going to completely miss. I knew the moment you fired them that they were too short. That destroyer was moving too quickly, but it didn't matter anyway. Friendly ships take him out. That means the enemy team has pretty much lost their destroyer advantage. They're down to just 1, and that one destroyer, though, he's going to be a sneaky little sucker and is going to try and cap the base. The friendly Warspite, who was offered protection at the beginning of the battle, has been taken out. I'm not entirely sure who actually managed to sink the guy, because it happened in the middle of all of that action. Train is now putting out massive amounts of high explosive fire onto this New Mexico, and this is a good thing to do. He's got himself relatively angled, and of course, the Cleveland's Citadel is incredibly hard to hit.
The ship is on fire!
He's going to switch focus over to the enemy Cleveland that's up in front of him. And looking at the situation, since the New Mexico's no longer spotted, that's a reasonable decision. But he switches over to the armor piercing. And at this point, I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would stick with that high explosive. And I would stick with that high explosive because of the maneuvering that both of you are doing. The high explosive is probably going to get more consistent hits. It also lets you switch back and forth between shooting at this Cleveland at range and shooting at the New Mexico without having to worry about switching your ammo types in between shots, or just wasting a whole salvo shooting at something you're not going to penetrate. But as you close the range, and you are continuing to get broadsides, then using that armor piercing can really turn into an effective solution. So he gets shots out there, and like I said, a lot of those shots broke apart, and a lot of them bounced. But if you'd continued using your high explosive here, you would have been able to put a solid 2 to 4K salvo, and maybe even set the guy on fire. He takes a bit of a hit there from the Cleveland, and the Cleveland is trying to close in, but the Cleveland is also using armor piercing. And like I said, the armor piercing, just especially when shooting at another Cleveland, just doesn't have the consistency that high explosive does. High explosive is going to knock out a lot of stuff, which is pretty good. Though at this point, using the armor piercing is going to prove to be effective because you are close enough that your armor piercing can now effectively hit and penetrate. And if you manage to penetrate the Citadel, you can do a lot of damage. He takes a big hit there from the New Mexico, who is shooting at him, and he returns the favor by citadeling the Cleveland. And he's got himself bow onto that New Mexico. Now, the New Mexico, he gets fortunate, is taken out by friendly teammates. But you'll notice that he took a quick glance over and did try to get his guns pointed at the direction just in case it was necessary to take him out. And if that's the situation, you've got armor piercing loaded, aim high for that superstructure to guarantee those overpins. But you also are close enough at that situation that you might actually be able to penetrate both the bow, the stern, and possibly even that side belt armor because you're so close. There's one of the two enemy aircraft carriers who's popped up as he's trying to make a run to go group up with the other one, and Train is firing high explosive. At the kind of angle that you're talking about right here, and the fact that you're in a cruiser, that's actually a really good decision. Setting that carrier on fire to prevent him from getting aircraft up is a fantastic thing to do. But you are getting a little sidetracked. At this point, I would be pushing into their base more than anything. Because, as you'll notice, enemy destroyer has started capping your base. Now, your teammates are sitting on the cap, so he's not technically gaining any points, but you can never count on the reliability of random teams, and both of the teammates in that area decided, nah, screw it, and turned around. However, friendly teammates are now capturing the enemy base, and so is Train. But he's going to continue to shell the carriers. And before this type of match mode, so you can see where both teams have bases and there are accruing points, before this type of match mode existed, way back in the open beta, a lot of players would see those carriers and they would get sidetracked, and they would get focused on that kill, and they would go, and they would leave the cap, and they would hunt down those CVs, trying to get that little bit more damage done, that another kill, and the number of draws at the end of a 20-minute battle was absolutely disgusting. There's the enemy Bogue has popped up. Now, the Bogue is a particularly slow boat, so he going behind that hill there might not be a good thing. He does manage to citadel him and set him on fire with his high explosive, just to give you an idea how lightly armored the Bogue is. For future reference, if you are playing in a battleship and you see a Bogue, your armor piercing is probably going to over-penetrate. Which would probably explain a lot when I'm shooting at carriers like that. So he's going to continue pumping with the high explosive. He's got the arc to clear the island there, but not quite the aim. As guys on the other side of the island, it's kind of difficult to see. One of the tricks that I use is putting my shots and trying to re-aim long and trying to see if I can see over the island just that little bit. More shots in there, another citadel on the Bogue with his armor, with his high explosive. And he gets taken out by friendly torpedoes. 67,000 damage, not bad. 171,000 credits earned in a tier 6 battle, in a regular battle at that. So that is a pretty darn good game for a Cleveland. I don't think that I ever managed anything more than an average of 40,000 damage in my Cleveland, but then again, I didn't like the Cleveland. I did, however, like the Pepsi Cola. Top of the team for XP earn 1,600 base. Overall, a fantastic base experience earn, considering how short the battle was. I mean, just slightly over 11 minutes there. So, there we have it. A-Train, good job in the Cleveland. Hopefully, you continue to improve your skills and you send me even better replays in your cruisers, destroyers, and whatnot. Anyway, that's it for today's video, folks. If you like the video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment down below. If you'd like to get semi-regular channel news and updates, you can do so by following me on my Facebook. If you'd like to help support me and my channel, I encourage you to do so by visiting my Patreon. If you would like to watch me play World of Warships, Skyrim, or other games live, you can do so by following my Twitch channel. And if you've got a replay like this one that you'd like to submit to me, you can do so by sending it to my email, PMing me via YouTube, or sending me a message on Facebook. You can find the links for all of those in the video description down below. And as always, I'll see you next time. This is Captain Rye, signing off.